Supply Ontario has been given a very important and very complex mandate, which is to basically consolidate supply chain and procurement across the province of Ontario. The complexity of the ecosystem, as well as the diversity of our ecosystem, make it much more difficult for us to be able to get a strong handle on the prioritization and as well as the convergence of some of these opportunities. The operationalization as a fairly recent agency, we're still pretty much in startup mode. So the foundational, what I would say, structure has to be developed. We have prioritized this on delivery, but now we are faced with, how do we scale up? How do we scale up in making sure that we have all the corporate functions, for instance, well established, and we have some fulsome programs for our employees to be able to train and also develop within a small organization. My role of Chief Digital and Data Officer is twofold. First and foremost, understand the business and understand the business in the context of modernization of that business. The second one is to basically set up the organization with the data and digital functions and capabilities that can help us achieve our objective, which, as I stated earlier, is consolidation, harmonization of our procurement across the province, along three pillars fundamentally, which are value creation, resiliency. So for instance, making sure that in times of crisis, we have a redundant path to acquisition of goods and services that are critical to Canadians and Ontarians. And the third one is, of course, economic development. So Ontario is a very rich province. It's a province that is really fueled by a lot of innovation. What we want to make sure is that the small organization that can contribute to the overall economy and can be given an opportunity to take part of the procurement process within government gain access to it. And that is basically the economic redundancy piece. Where data comes in is really understanding the landscape, to get the insights that we need from data to be able to start making some decisions around value creation, harmonization, but also inform potential modernization initiatives that can be driven by new regulations, by new policies. So there is an insight role, and that is driving a lot of what I would say opportunities across the organization that are operational in its intent, but also drive a lot of the potentially can inform new policy of our modernization. You want to make sure that when you're procuring goods, so I'm talking more from the client or the citizen experience, you have, you could be a hospital as an example. You want to procure goods that are vital to the operations of the hospital and clinicians, and ultimately the patient. So, the best value for money absolutely is important, but you also want to make sure that we have certainty is whatever is being acquired has been certified, has stability in the market, and also has a credible, what I would say, supplier and logistics support behind it. So, the value of our procurement is not just a question of, there's a value chain, as I call it, of our procurement, which is the acquisition, but it's the effect. So for instance, there's a procurement path, but there's also a clinician path to leveraging that piece of, call it medical equipment, that will eventually translate in better patient outcomes. So that's from a citizen perspective. From an employee perspective, this is a new organization. So there's a lot of buzz about data, digital. I'm able to basically go out and hire some top talent because the mandate is so vital and so important. And this is the mission that we all feel is so important for us to achieve that. It's very easy for me to get talent as a result of having such a very compelling, as I would say, compelling mission statement around it. So diversity of the Ontario province around talent is also something that is really beneficial for me. And having the ability to, progress. The agility that we've been given as part of a new startup is great. So as a result of it, with still government, but it's government with a higher level of flexibility, which is absolutely enticing to people individuals and professionals in the data and digital field. I've had an interesting journey within the public sector as a whole. I actually did not start in the public sector. I started working in high tech with the former darling of telecommunication in Canada, Nortel. So out of university, I started working at Nortel. And in 2009, I made a decision to join the federal public service. Within the federal public service, I was so privileged to be able to work across many different departments with very different mission statements, with always the commonality of being government. So of course, I've worked at Health Canada, in public safety, CBSA, arts and culture at Canadian Heritage, and as well as scientific research granting agencies such as NSERC, and ultimately at the Department of National Defense. So you see that it's a very broad and very diverse spectrum of organizations. So what drives me? You would say, like, Christiana, what is the commonality? And I always see myself as a servant in the sense of bring the best that I can to improve the life of Canadians or Ontarians in this particular case. So I'm very much about my mission as a public servant. I'm also driven by, and what I enjoy the most is transformation and innovation. And as I mentioned earlier, innovation is challenging to innovate within the government context, but transformation is possible. And I'm having come from a company like Nortel that really picked and chose us as instruments of innovation is something that I think I can bring back to the public sector, and that's what keeps me most challenged, and probably why I have changed around so much. I always felt that it was a challenge to go to the next juncture and the next department to be able to exploit the possibilities of transformation. Provincial has been a very interesting journey. Lots of commonalities, but also very, very different dynamic within the provincial public service. And truly, again, the same aspect of transformation, initiation, startup, getting things going. This is what appeals to me the most. It's a very intimate setting, and I'm not talking about the size or the number of participants. It's just the format. The format really brings a collective of individuals who have like interests, and they want to learn more, but they want to learn more from individuals or be able to share ideas with individuals that get them. It's very challenging at times to be a public servant, because public sector employee, because you just don't. You have a kind of an individuality problem in the sense that only your aspirations are not as easily translatable as it is in the private sector. So it brings that community and that purpose into a collective. I enjoy the smaller format. I enjoy having the ability as well to express myself, talk about myself, but also, not overly regimented as one of the big, conferences around the world. I've spoken to a few of those, and there is that intimacy, as I mentioned, that's kind of missing. So it's a way for me to give back. Honestly, it's a way to give back to the community, especially in the setting now where we can actually talk to people face to face, in person. It's, we're back, we want to be part of this greater collective where we can share ideas and we can all think about how we can better ourselves as public servants, regardless of what government color level we fit within. I feel perfectly at home as somebody who's working on the provincial side, speaking and presenting to my federal colleagues.